He is alone, sitting on a wooden table, surrounded by complete darkness. His legs are tightly bound with a thick rope. No blood, no scenery, no explanation, just a lamb, alive, motionless, waiting. This image was painted in 1640 by a deeply religious Spanish artist. Today, it hangs in one of the world's greatest museums, surrounded by masterpieces. And yet, almost no one stops to look at it. Perhaps because few people want to confront something this unsettling. A living lamb tied to a table isn't merely sad. It's disturbing. And what makes it even more haunting is the precision, the quiet perfection with which it was painted. But why? Why preserve such a scene forever? What does it mean? The artist was Francisco de Zurbarán. And to understand why someone would paint something like this, you have to understand the era he lived in, the Spanish Golden Age, a time when art served only one master, faith. The church held the power, the wealth, and the message. And that message was simple: pain, sacrifice, redemption. Art wasn't just decoration. It was a tool meant to move you, to humble you, to make you feel guilt and salvation at once. Zurbarán became one of the greatest painters of that mission. Born in 1598, he was known as the painter of monks. Most of his work was commissioned by religious orders, seeking images that could inspire reflection or fear. What made him unique was his austerity. No embellishments, no theatrics like the Italians. Zurbarán painted with silence, using harsh light, deep shadows, and almost unnerving realism. The painting itself is small, 38 by 62 centimeters. But when you stand before it, it feels as though it fills the entire room. A lamb lies on what looks like an altar or butcher's table, its front legs crossed and tightly bound. It doesn't move. There's no tension, no rest, just quiet stillness. The animal is alive and waiting. The background is completely black. No setting, no context, no sense of time, just darkness. Zurbarán did this deliberately, to trap your gaze on the lamb, leaving you nowhere else to look. The light enters from one side, as though from a candle or small window, illuminating only the lamb's body. It feels staged, like a sacred ritual, or perhaps something darker. And the curtain has just risen, and yet there's no blood, no violence. Zurbarán didn't need it. With his almost surgical realism, he made the horror live quietly in calmness. There's no expression on the lamb's face, but that lack of expression feels like acceptance. It doesn't struggle or resist. It simply waits. And that stillness, that pause before the sacrifice, is what makes this painting more unsettling than any scene of martyrdom. You might have noticed I haven't mentioned the painting's title yet. And that's intentional, because the title changes everything. The work is called Agnus Dei -- Latin for Lamb of God. And with that, everything transforms. This isn't just an animal. It represents Jesus Christ. In the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 29, John the Baptist says, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." From that moment on, the Lamb became the ultimate symbol of sacrifice. Pure, innocent, condemned to die not for its own sins, but for ours. So yes, that silent, bound creature on the table is Christ himself. Interestingly, this painting isn't unique. Zurbarán painted at least 7 different versions of the same subject. 7 lambs, 7 quiet masterpieces, each slightly different and yet all equally powerful. But here's where art historians disagree. Are all of them truly religious works? Are they all Agnus Dei? Art historian Odile de Lenda argues that 5 versions shouldn't bear that title, since they lack religious attributes. No halos, no inscriptions, and in some, the lamb even has horns. A horned lamb, she says, cannot represent Christ. To her, these are not sacred paintings, but exercises in technique, studies of light, texture, and composition. But the Prado Museum, which houses the most famous version, disagrees. They argue that in 17th century Spain, the link between the Lamb and Christ was so absolute that no symbols were needed. And that's the great question. Did Zurbarán paint a still life, or the deepest symbol of faith, a tied animal, or the Son of God awaiting sacrifice? Perhaps, and this may be the real genius, he painted both. An image that changes its meaning, depending on who's looking. To one viewer, it's just a lamb. To another, it's Christ himself. And that ambiguity, that balance between the earthly and the divine, is what makes Zurbarán's art timeless. Even 4 centuries later, that we're still standing before the same painting, asking the same question. What did he truly mean?
I'd love to hear what you think in the comments.